Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of Lights, Camera, Sunglasses. Lights, Cameras, Sunglasses. I'm going to change the name possibly next week. That's what the name is this week. Today, I'm going to talk about the really ridiculously stupid argument that I just hear over and over again. Did America start off as a country of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, rugged individuals, or was it built off slave labor? And I'll save you the suspense. People who argue both sides as separate narratives are all a bunch of dumb or you're a bunch of manipulative bastards, and the real answer is both. The answer is both. And this is coming from somebody who, because of my job in the last 5 years, only in the last couple of years did I really do a deep dive into history and turn into a big history dork. From the age of 20 till I was 40, I didn't read much of anything. I was kind of one of those people where it's like if you interviewed me on the street in one of those Tonight Show jaywalking things. Yeah, I know that dates me. I used to watch that in college with my girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend, college girlfriend. Puppy love. I love you. I'm overflowing with emotion. If somebody had asked me at the time, like, when was the Declaration of Independence signed? July 4th, 1776. Everybody knows that. Oh, and did you also know that it was actually 2 days before, but then it took time to get there on horseback and yada yada. Great. How long was the Revolutionary War? Ooh, that's how it was for most. I was like, on those detailed questions, I didn't know. I didn't know about a lot of that stuff. I'm not going to dive into it now, but yeah, this country, first off, started off with, the early 1600s history really was white English settlers getting along after some conflict, finally, in the 1630s, starting to get along with the indigenous population in New England. I'll speak for New England. And then everything went south by 1674, and the fighting and the horrible crimes against humanity started. And then, yes, and alongside with that, there were people that came here that were the originally indentured servants that were white and black. Irish indentured servants, Italian indentured servants. Then they invented black codes in 1691 started in Virginia. The country was built on slavery, and also it was built on rugged individuals that didn't have slaves because the morals, that was not really a thing until the 1830s, but the real reason was they couldn't afford it. Most people in history, just in America, didn't own slaves because they couldn't afford it. It's expensive to keep people in chains because human beings, we like being free. So, we become a pain in the ass when we, keep fighting and revolting, and that's been happening all throughout human history. Sometimes the pull yourself up by your bootstrap people became the slave-owning people, because how do you get your first slaves? You have to be able to afford that. So you gotta start off with nothing, back in the day, and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and then get the capital investment, and then people in the South would buy slaves, and then, eventually after some rinsing and repeating and having all of that forced free labor of those of African ancestry, then you could take your foot off the gas pedal and be kind of a wealthy landowner. And then it just builds on itself, and you could be a lot of serial entrepreneurs. There was the guy who did who owned the Victoria Mansion in Portland, Maine. He originally, he was a hotel in the hotel business down in Louisiana, and he would have slave auctions in his hotel. There were free black people that were independent maritime workers in New England. They were, chopping wood, blacksmithing, doing the same thing the white people were doing, and they were free, and they were suffering racism, of course, still. And they also pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. They, because they weren't born into slavery. And then also you had lots of free slave labor. So it's just so stupid. Like, the people who argue as if it's one or the other, it's not really that hard. I mean, this is coming from somebody who just started diving into this history a couple of years ago, and I've already figured this out. Like the books are there. I mean, books like The President and the Freedom Fighter. By the way, I'm listing them out because I'm just going to list the titles because I get annoyed on podcasts when people say things like, look it up. And it's like, where? So, my sources on everything I just told you are definitely books. YouTube videos, I had to kind of find how I learn things, and I'm a visual learner. So I kind of, at first, would vaguely get information from YouTube channels like Knowledgeia, Kings and Generals. And, that way, I used to be an actor, and I did minor crap in the screen, when I was part of the Screen Actors Guild, some small film work. But because of that, I learned things in terms of cast of characters. So first, since I was catching up on a lot of stuff that I didn't know at the tender age of 40, first get an overview of cast of characters and alternate between YouTube video, then books. Gotta read the books. And so books like I mentioned, President and the Freedom Fighter, 1906, Booker T. Washington's book, The Biography of Frederick Douglass. And that's 11 years, 1906, that's 11 years after Frederick Douglass died. There's that, there's, what else? The 272, Franklin and Washington. Yeah, about how Ben Franklin and George Washington specifically worked together during the Revolution, especially, but, their lives individually. But then how and when they overlapped. And it was kind of a contrast too, because you had one guy who was a slave owner and one guy who was against slavery. Ben Franklin, as of the 1750s, became against slavery. His wife, quote unquote, they didn't officially get married, Dorothy Reed. Dorothy Reed ran a school for black children. And or maybe black and white children, but Ben realized when he saw the scores that the students had was that, the black students learn just as good or just as bad as the white students. It's not really any different. He realized, these are just human beings. And so he became very much against slavery. And so, you have books like that. Various books about pre-colonial America, before the colonies really started getting set up in New England. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. This was a country about rugged individualism, and there were even black people that pulled themselves up by their bootstraps because they either were born, luckily, free. And like I said, there was plenty of, there were places where, like in Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, when we became a country that slavery was already illegal, the Treaty of Paris, we officially became a country in 1783. Treaty of Paris gets signed. Places like Massachusetts, outlawed slavery that same year. So there was still, you can't outlaw racism because that's people's feelings. So there were plenty of black people living under, as second-class citizens and being treated like that everywhere. But they, a very small fraction of them in the South also got their freedom and got their wealth and then also bought slaves. And it was a small fraction. Off the top of my head, I know the statistics for South Carolina. This one, I admit, I got this one off Wikipedia. It's South Carolina and slavery. So by 1850, the 9,000 free black citizens in South Carolina, only 180 or 190 of them own slaves. And so, yeah. Anyway, and the people who argue either side so firmly that, are you kidding me? This country was made by rugged individualism. What? Are you kidding me? This country was built off of free labor of African slaves. It's like, yeah, the answer is yes. You're both right. Like you're so. Yeah, it's not even that you're stupid. Some of those people, they know that the answer is that it's both. It's just that, they're just scum. Like you make your living off of just intentionally creating propaganda because you just want to stir shit up out there. Real contribution to human society, and that's another problem. That's why I've given up on humanity a long time ago, except like in the immediacy, like George Carlin said, one-on-one. If somebody's like right in front of you, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, go, screw off. Like, I'm not going to help you. No, you got a duty to help a person that, deserves it and who's not a con artist trying to screw you and lie about how they need help. Protect yourself. Don't be stupid. The Walking Dead line. Do not confuse our kindness for weakness. But yeah, it's like just so despicable, just being out there running your mouth about how you're pretending to be on one side of an argument just because you know that you have a fan base of people that just love just mentally jerking off to, that bullshit narrative. So you just keep on pushing that narrative, even though it's not true. It's like those of you out there who do that, you know who you are. And, you're cunning and deceitful. And the rest of you who believe those narratives are stupid. My goal with this show is to be very likable.